It's executive producer Priyanka Tilve. School is out. The first big holiday of the summer is already past us, and it feels like endless days of humidity lie ahead. But honestly, every summer, July and August actually fly by me. And there are some summer classics that I always seem to miss. So today on CityCast DC, our host Bridget Todd sits down with food and travel writer Tim Ebner to lay out your perfect summer bucket list for 2024. From one-off events like pig racing, yeah, you heard that right, to the quintessential DC summer activities we often take for granted. Today is Tuesday, July 9th, and here's what DC is talking about.
Tim, welcome back to the show. I'm so excited to see you.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So I'm excited to talk to you because I think of you as sort of the travel things to do in DC, guide to the city aficionado. And our newsletter writer, Kayla, put out a call to ask for everybody's must-do DC summer bucket list items. I want to talk about that, but before we dive into people's recommendations, what is on Tim's personal summer bucket list in DC?
Yes, I love summer. It's my favorite season of the year, mainly because you get to be outdoors. And yes, it's hot. Yes, it's humid. There are, though, ways to cool down around the DC area. I'll give you two of my favorite, and these are always on my bucket list every summer. First, it has to be river tubing. So getting over to the Shenandoah River or the Potomac River around Harper's Ferry and getting a group of friends together that can really just spend a day floating down the river. It's one of my favorite things to do because it's such a social activity. There are so many easy ways you can get out there, whether it's by train or by a road trip. You can also hire a bus that can get you out to the river, and they'll even pick you up at the output of where your river tubing ends. So it's a really fun experience if you haven't tried it before. Best of all, you get to bring your own drinks along for the ride, your own picnic. You can even float your cooler down the river. So it's a really refreshing way to stay cool this summer, and it's definitely one of my bucket lists for the summer.
It really is so fun. We used to have it like down to a science where we would park our car in a specific place and then like somebody would like catch a ride back so that when we would float, the car would be there. Although if you use like River Riders or one of those services, they take all of the guesswork out of it for you. And there's just something about splashing around in a river in West Virginia that signals summer and wildness and freedom, like maybe a canned beverage while you're out there. Although be safe because rivers can be serious, but something about that really says summer to me.
Totally. And I think the best part about doing the river tubing experience is there's so many versions of the rapids that you can go on. They can be pretty intense if you want to do some kayaking even or some canoeing down some class 1, 2, or 3 rapids, but you could also do just a leisurely float with friends. So whether you're a thrill seeker or you're just trying to hang out, the river tubing experience is absolutely bucket list worthy for your summer.
Okay, what else is on Tim's must-do DC summer bucket list experience?
I love the Chesapeake Bay. It's one of my favorite parts of the DC area. You know, getting over to the bay is really easy and accessible, especially from this area. You don't have to go all the way over the Bay Bridge. Two of my favorite places on Maryland's western shore, which is much closer, just south of Annapolis, are at Chesapeake Beach, which is only about an hour away from here. They have a boardwalk. They have incredible water activities, including a splash park, an all-access beach that's public. You can really enjoy your experience and your time by the water without having to sit in that, dreaded Bay Bridge traffic. And my favorite thing there, too, is that they have a lot of different crab and seafood houses. So it's awesome to have your annual crab feast. I have to do that every summer. It's absolutely part of my bucket list. But most importantly, I want to do it with a waterfront view. And so when you get over to Chesapeake Beach, it's a great way to have both of those options. But also, closer to us on the Potomac River even, we have plenty of options when it comes to being by the water. So if you even go over to the wharf, you could have a crab feast, say, at the seafood market there. You could also go to one of the many restaurants that line the wharf. My personal favorite would be Rappahannock oyster because they have just incredible crab cakes. And so, this is a city day trip where you could easily make your crab feast happen, even in Washington, D.C. What I'll also say is cool about the wharf is after you're done eating, you could hop on the water taxi, get down the river, and go all the way to Old Town Alexandria. It's almost like having a boat, even without that friend who has a boat. And I don't currently have a friend with a boat. So if anyone's listening and they want to make friends with me and you have a boat, I'm all ears.
Yeah, also invite me. Tim and I are a package deal on this boat thing.
Yes, you always need that friend with a boat. And let me tell you, it's hard to find those friends in Washington.
Want to know one of my favorite sounds? Here it is. That's the sound I hear when I'm learning Spanish with Babbel. And if you want to learn a new language this year, I guarantee it'll be one of your favorite sounds too. I'm David Plotz. I'm the CEO of CityCast, and I've been doing Babbel for a few weeks, and it's been so much fun. This week, I've been learning lots of food vocabulary and how to order in a restaurant. This is one of the things I love about Babbel, is that it's about learning the language so that you can use it. As Babbel says, it's designed by real people for real conversation. So it's all based on real life situations. And these restaurant lessons are awesome. When I went to Mexico City last year with my girlfriend, I was a mute. But next time, I'm going to be ordering the sopes and las salsas picantes. Babbel has over 16 million subscriptions sold, plus all of Babbel's 14 award-winning language courses are backed by their 20-day money-back guarantee. Here's a special limited-time deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for CityCast listeners at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Paint Care is all about keeping it simple for district residents. They make recycling leftover paint, stain, and varnish easy with convenient drop-off locations like your local paint or hardware store. Each new paint project is an opportunity to reduce waste, and Paint Care has 3 simple rules for painting smarter. 1, buy the right amount of paint for the job. 2, use up leftover paint. And 3, recycle the rest. Visit paintcare.org/3simplerules to get tips on how to buy the right amount of paint, explore ideas for DIY projects for how to use up leftover paint, and look up your nearest drop-off site in the district. I feel like I'm sensing a pattern for Tim's guide to bucket list summer. It's being by the water and eating seafood. I feel like these are the 2 tent poles of what makes a good summer for you, no?
It is, but I will also say another cool thing about the summertime, and we're actually coming upon it really soon, is it's going to be fair season. So that means the Montgomery County Fair, the Prince George's County Fair, the Fairfax City Fair. There's so many different county fairs around this region. And what's really neat is that those are the amusement park rides, your funnel cake, all of your great fried foods, fried Oreos, of course. I really encourage folks to check those fairs and festivals out. It's also fun because they have different agricultural type activities. My favorite personally is at the Montgomery County Fair. They have pig racing, which is literally these baby pigs that race around a track, and you can make bets with your friends on who will win first. It's such a fun experience. And, these fair festivals start in around August and they run all the way until the fall time period. Southern Maryland has some of the latest agricultural fairs that exist in this region. And, DC even has its own version of a state fair, which I find so fascinating, including pie competitions and all sorts of other fun activities. So we're really coming upon a season in the next couple of weeks where we'll have some of those more summertime rituals. And I think the agricultural fairs are just one of the fun ones.
How did I live in DC for all of my life and didn't know that you could go watch baby pigs being raced and bet on those baby pigs?
It's incredible. And, I think it's just one of those unique only in Montgomery County activities. I'll also add, we're coming upon the neighborhood festival season. So We'll get to a point where it'll be H Street Festival, Adams Morgan Festival. Those neighborhood celebrations, those block party celebrations really are fundamental to our community. And I always have to take a beat and really remind myself, put those on my calendar, schedule them in, because you can totally forget about them. And there's so many fun opportunities to reconnect with your neighbors, spend a day walking down your block, visiting your favorite restaurant, visiting your favorite bars. It's really that time of year that will come upon soon. And you'll definitely want to schedule those into your calendar as well.
Yeah, as I said, we put out the call to CityCast readers and listeners about what is on their DC summer bucket list. And so many of the things were exactly that, these kind of community staple events. Actually, one person also to your comment about water taxiing to dinner in Old Town, which seems to be a crowd favorite of things to do this summer. Some of the things that people are excited to do this summer are things like an ice cream crawl where they're hitting all the best ice cream spots in DC. And then these sort of, I don't know, more spur of the moment things. Like, this is something I found very interesting about the things people wrote in and told us about, where they seem to sort of be in these two buckets. One, the kind of events, community events that you were talking about that you would need to put on your schedule. And then the other bucket is sort of spur of the moment things that you might do with your friends, right? So spending a Sunday afternoon at one of the outdoor public pools, or horseback riding in Rock Creek Park, right? Things that you might not necessarily schedule, but are the kind of things that you might bump into a friend and they're like, hey, we're going to go do this. Do you want to come do it with us? And as somebody who is a summer events goings-on aficionado, I wonder, where do you fall on this dichotomy? Like, do you have a preference when it comes to these scheduled events that are on a calendar or the spur of the moment events in the summer?
You know, I think what I'm really becoming more and more is a spontaneous person in terms of my summer activities. When I find myself with a weekend free in Washington, D.C., I also think about the things that I take for granted living in our nation's capital. So much of the time, you know, we grow up here, we live here, we work here, but I've actually never spent time being a tourist in my own city. So my summertime bucket ritual this year is really kind of embracing being a tourist sometimes. I spent my weekend hanging out with some friends. We went to the Smithsonian Folklife Festival, which I really don't take advantage of each summer. And that's a great summertime bucket list opportunity. We also went to the Air and Space Museum because that just recently reopened and is still being renovated with really cool installations for space and for climate science, as well as for awesome planes like the Wright brothers plane. You know, another thing I've never done is gone up to the top of the Washington Monument before. So I think I need to put that next on my bucket list. I grew up here. I'm from this area. I live on Capitol Hill, and yet I haven't ever done some of these quintessential Washington, D.C. things. And I think that's a fun way to like be spontaneous this summer. It's really embracing the fact that we live in a city filled with amazing monuments, free museums, incredible access to great outdoors activities. And I just think we always take those things for granted. And so make this the summer where you can appreciate some of those incredible opportunities that are right in your own backyard.
I love it. Speaking of that, one of the bucket list items that somebody wrote in with is something called a blind 8 dinner party. Have you ever heard of this?
I have not. Tell me more.
Okay, so I was a little bit skeptical, but it does sound very cool. They say these two brothers just go out onto the streets of DC with a sign that says dinner party at ours and find 8 strangers to bring together for a really unique dinner party experience. The person who suggested this says, I know this sounds crazy, but check them out at Blind 8 Project on Instagram. So speaking of like spontaneity and embracing the spontaneity of summer in DC, I can't think of a more spontaneous thing to do than that kind of thing.
That's awesome. And you know, the cool thing too is like, I've been to dinners where restaurants have maybe, say, a ticketed experience and it's a tasting around one table with a bunch of people you might not know. What I love about those meals, especially in Washington, D.C., is you're going to quickly find so many mutual connections or interests. This is a city of people filled with incredibly talented, just obviously work lives, but also personal lives. And the moment you are able to share a meal and sit down with someone from this area, you quickly find out that you either have mutual friends or you work on sort of similar issues, or you have just like kind of similar passions. So a meal is a great way to experience the city. And I think with a lot of strangers, it might seem a little scary at first. Maybe just come prepared to that meal with like a couple of icebreaker questions to kind of, put everyone at ease. But I do think Washington, D.C. is one of these places where it's really easy to walk into a restaurant, a bar, quickly chat someone up and really make friends with them really quickly. And I would say add that to your bucket list too. I'm certainly going to add it to mine.
Yes. I mean, I'm so glad that you say this because it sort of gets at a kind of tension that I sort of feel in the summertime. As soon as the weather gets nice, the first few weeks, I'm like, oh, I love it. And then the next few weeks, I'm like, oh, I feel kind of this weird mix of FOMO and pressure to do a lot of things. And I don't know if your schedule is like mine, but it fills up really quickly. And so, I wouldn't even say that I'm somebody who sits down and makes a summer bucket list because I need to have times that are not planned and scheduled to make time for the spontaneous, like, oh, I just met this person out and we're going to go to a second location together and see where the day takes me, right? And I feel that summer can be tough because it feels like, maybe you're traveling. Maybe all of your friends are in Europe or on a boat and they didn't invite you. And just balancing that social pressure can be a little tough in the summertime, I find.
Social pressure can certainly be an inhibitor for saying getting out there and doing something fun. But let me throw a couple more ideas out there to those folks who might say, hey, I don't have a group of friends. I don't really know how to get connected in to the DC community. Number one, I think get out there and maybe do something productive for your community. One of the things I do solo is I go on park walks. And the latest one that I just did was over at Kingman Park. And it's this wonderful island in the middle of the Anacostia River. But when I go, I actually bring a bag with me and I actually pick up plastic waste and litter along the way. So it's not only something that I can do sort of like my forest bathing or my solitude, but I can go and then help kind of our community by cleaning up a park that has been maybe, plagued by some litter. When I did that, actually, what was kind of funny was I stumbled upon the Anacostia watershed had a Sunday event where they were hosting a kayak paddle. I had no idea. And they were actually doing a kayak paddle where they collect plastic waste in the waterways. I honestly had no idea this existed. It's right in my own backyard. I started talking to them about this. And again, it's just one of those happens by chance moments. But now, I'm plugged into that group and that community. And it's so funny that like, here I am going out on my own to do this thing that I thought I'd only be individualistic on. And yet there's an entire community of people supporting me and doing the same activity that I am. So just, maybe push yourself to go out there a little bit. And then on the, more social side, I oftentimes say, what is it that you're most interested in? A great example right now, I love soccer and the Euro Cup is happening. There are so many bars around this city that host different European soccer fan bases, and you can go to those places, feel a part of a community, feel connected to a larger group of people. And what a fun way to cheer on your favorite team, especially in the summertime. We're coming upon the Olympics next, so it's like, there's definitely going to be a host of bars for game watches there and for different matches that will happen with the Olympics. Just think about what you're most interested in and try to connect in and see, hey, maybe someone is doing this as well. It could be a great way to break the ice and meet some new friends in the process.
Absolutely. That is great advice for folks who are feeling maybe like I am, a little bit of social pressure, a little bit of FOMO, all of these weird feelings all intertwined. But you mentioned Kingman Island, and I have to ask, we had a whole conversation on the news roundup about the River Splash event in the Anacostia River where people were supposed to swim in the Anacostia River. I mean, I guess the question I have is like, would you swim in the Anacostia River? You'll get the chance to later this summer. Would you do it?
It's a great question. I really support the folks who are going to swim in the Anacostia River. I don't necessarily think I'm ready to swim in the Anacostia only because I've spent my time living here and I've rode the waters and I've seen some of the earlier times where the Anacostia might have been slightly more polluted. But what's really cool and inspiring now is that the Anacostia is a clean watershed system. It's getting much cleaner than it ever has before, thanks to a lot of folks who have spent a lot of time either helping grow the mussel population in that water system to help naturally filter it, or planting some of these greeneries and grasses that help it thrive as an ecosystem. I look forward to a day where I will swim in the Anacostia. I've definitely swam in the Potomac River before. I'm still standing and I'm strong as ever. But I do think I watch when those times for the rain happens. It tends to have a little bit of an effect on our waterways being slightly more polluted. So I would say maybe I'd go swimming in the Anacostia on a sunnier stretch of time period, and probably look at the water qualities that our local area produces, just in case, to be a little bit more careful.
What a diplomatic way to say, love it for y'all, maybe not for me.
Exactly. Give me some time. I might come around to it, though. We'll see.
Tim, thank you so much for being here. Happy summer.
Thank you, Bridget. I hope you enjoy the rest of your summer, too.
That's all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, tell that friend of yours who has a boat, and then invite us to join you both on the water. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye!